Hello. Today I'm gonna do a lengthy video. So this video is for my new clients. I've had a lot of new clients lately, so I thought I would do an updated video and go over a few of our products and how to use them and some tips and techniques that may help troubleshoot some areas that you may have been experiencing. So if you're new to my page, I'm Michaela Williams, and I'm an artist with SEINT Beauty. I've been an artist for over 4 years, and I absolutely love this makeup. And there's so much versatility and so many different things you can do with this makeup. And there's nothing else out there like it on the market. The minute I saw it blowing up all over social media, I knew I just had to give it a try because it was so different and so unique than any other thing I've ever used in my 67 years of using makeup. And I've used quite a few. So let me share some of the things that I have found that have helped and that worked with me, and go over just how this makeup and these products work. It's a cream makeup, and they come in these magnetic palettes, and the palettes come in all different sizes. This is the 12 palette. This is my most favorite palette, and the one I usually recommend the most because it has 2 layers. You can build it and put the shades you use, and have lots of options. You don't have to fill it up all at once. You can add later. It's up to you. And then there is the 3-level palette. If you want to have the Mac Daddy, this is our largest palette besides getting into the Artist Pro palette, and this is the 27 palette. Then we have an 18 palette that's the same principle as the 27, only this one's 2 layers instead of 3. And as you can see, I use them all to hold different products. And then we have an 8 palette that's 8. And the reason how they're sized is it goes by how many tins will fit in a palette. So you have larger tins, and if I put 4 larger tins across this one, 4 would fit. Otherwise, you can put eyeshadows, because 2 of the smaller eyeshadows are the same size as 1 large tin. So you can mix and match and create your own custom palette, which is really ingenious. And you only put the colors in there that you want, that you like. You pick them out. So they're magnetic. So when a tin runs out, it's very simple. You just take one out, have a space. Let me grab one. And that's the brow wax, so it's clear, so it won't show up very well. Let's do this one. This is a lip conditioner. And you see they come in these cute little tins, and you just slide the cover off like that. And they're magnetic. And then you just pop them in your magnetic case. They go in just like that. And then when one runs out, you just replace it with a new one. Or if you want to switch it out to a different shade, like you're not wearing this lip and cheek today and you want to switch it out, you just save your lid that came off and then just scoop it out like that, and then put your new one in and replace it. Okay? So today I'm going to be working out of this palette, and we'll go into that in just a little bit. But the things that I want to talk about and go over, I made some notes so I don't forget. I'm kind of a type A personality. So when I give you a color match, I'll ask you a lot of questions because I want to be sure you get the effects and you get the results that you want from these products. I want you to love them as much as I do. There's a definite learning curve. These foundation, this cream foundation, is very different than any other foundation you've ever used, even other cream foundations. Our cream foundations are 38% pigmented. So when you look at them in the tins, they look really dark. So let me show you all of these tins, all of these color shades, and the different variations of them. So depending on when I do your color match, when you send me your color match form, I'll analyze your skin and look at all your imperfections and see what needs to be for your skin tone, which shade should be recommended, and I'll recommend those shades. And I more than likely will recommend at least 2 highlight shades, but most of the time it's 3, a contour, and a lip and cheek. And so if you started off with just basic and you didn't need any camouflage shade or anything, you just needed your 4 basic shades, this is the beginner's palette. And in it, you'll have 4 shades. You'll have your brightening shade, your main shade, your contour shade, and your lip and cheek. And that's enough to do your whole face. Not counting your eyes, but your face for your foundation and your lip and cheek. And you could get by with that. That's to get started. But most people want to have a little bit of options, or they need a camo shade, what we call a camouflage shade, to hide imperfections. And that's where you're going to go into a little bit darker shade. So in this palette that I'm using, I have a brightening shade, my main shade. I have another main shade that I use depending on the season, and depending on if I used a self tanner, depending on if I've been out in the sun and got a little bit more sun. It's in the middle of the changing of the season, it'll depend on that shade which I'll use. And then my camo shade is the darkest shade, and that's the one I use to camouflage and hide any dark redness, melasma, purple under eyes, whatever. And so that's my camo shade. And then I have a contour shade. Okay, and then on the second level, I have a bronzer, an illuminator, and lip and cheeks, and a lip conditioner. So that's just what I put in my shade. And then my eyeshadow palette, I usually keep my eyeshadows separate. But if you just wanted the minimums, you would just put your shades on the front and put your eyeshadows on the bottom. You don't have to have this many. But whenever I travel or whatever, this is what I take. That is this one. And then I'll fix a small everyday eyeshadow palette with just usually 4 shades, and then the cleaning tile. And then that's my whole makeup, these 2 palettes. You could put all of this in this one palette and then just limit, don't have as many lip and cheek shades as I have in here. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that's our palettes, how they work. And then next we have brushes, and the brushes make a big difference on your application, on the coverage you're going to get, and on the technique that you use, how you apply it, how it's going to look on your skin. So let me first go over some of our brushes. And the first brush we have is, this is a powder brush. All our brushes are double-ended, and so you really get the best bang for your buck, because a professional grade makeup brush, you would spend as much for one brush as you're going to get for this one that's 2 brushes. And these will last a long time if you take care of them. And I have other videos that show you how to clean them and take care of them. And I've had these over 4 years, as long as I've been with the company. And they've came out with a newer version that the tin is a little bit different color. I think it's more champagne silvery. And then the bristle tips are all white. They're not, they don't have any black on them at all. But it's the same brush, same quality. But I don't see any need to upgrade, because these are still working just fine. I have them all, but I haven't ever used them because I still keep using these. All right, so this is your powder brush. And I only use it for powder. And then next we have the 3D brush. This is our most our most recommended brush. But I say that with hesitation because it's not my most recommended brush. I find that most people, especially beginners, have a problem with this brush because it picks up way too much product, especially this pointy end. And then when you put it on, they have a tendency to swipe it on, and you don't want to swipe on your makeup, your cream makeup with this brush because it's going to leave streaks, because the bristles are long. Even though they're densely packed, they're long, and it's hard to get in these little small areas for me because I have small eyes. So I don't like this for a beginner brush. And then this end is like a Buki brush, and you can squeeze it like this, you know, and use it to put your contour, you know, if you want. But personally, I don't usually recommend this brush. Okay, it's a good brush, but it doesn't work well for beginners. Once you get experienced and you learn how to load the brush, pick up the product, apply the product, then you will get better at using all the different brushes. But until then, I don't recommend that you use that brush. And then this brush, I always recommend at least 2 brushes. This is one of them. This is the detail brush. This works awesome for putting on your contour. It just hugs that cheekbone and pushes it up. It's like a Spanx on a brush. It just puts that product right where you need it. I just can't tell you how much I love this brush. And it's double-ended, and you can use the small end for doing detail, lining the bottom of your lip, you know, going into the corner of your eyes to put camouflage shade there. Even use it to put, you know, eyeshadow on. It's a really good brush. And then this is your a blend brush. This is one of our newer brushes. We haven't had it from the beginning. It has really long bristles. I like using it for loose powder, for dusting off loose powder. Or if I want a really natural, no makeup look, I'll use this one, and then you just swirl it on and brush it on, and then your makeup you put on, it's a real fine, thin layer of makeup, okay? And then it has another small end. It's a little bit wider and flatter than the detail brush, but it's another small end you can use to get into tight, you know, corner places, which works good for getting around your nose. And then the other brush, I really like this brush. This is the Buff brush. And it's, as you can see, it's real shorter bristles, tightly packed. They're slanted, so it just kind of fits your face. And it's small enough to get in those smaller areas. You can use it with this pointy slanted part to put your contour on. If you only buy one brush, this is a nice one. But then again, I have to say, it's not always a really good brush for beginners because you have a tendency to pick up too much product. It picks up a lot of product. So you have to learn to use it. So watch my videos and demonstrations on how to use it, and don't pick up too much. And once you learn how to use it, it's an awesome brush. And because it just fits right on your face, and you just tap that product on, you tap it in, tap it on. You just have to be careful and don't put too much product on. But this brush is great if you like a medium to full coverage, okay? Then the next brush that I recommend is, if you can get a third brush, I'll recommend this, and it's the blush and bronzer brush. To buy it in the collection with the bronzer, the Bella bronzer is the bomb. And if you buy it with this brush, then you save $10. So I usually recommend that for your second purchase, if you don't buy it as your first brush on your first purchase, because I've now started recommending this as the #1 brush for beginners, because it has such a nice brush. You can put on an air brush finish, flawless finish. You can use this for your contour brush just by squeezing it, you know, like I showed you on the 3D brush, and putting it on, and then you use it for your blush and your bronzer. And this just works great for buffing. When you go to put your camo shade on, and if you need a camo shade, and then you just put a light layer and you just buff it on, which I'll demonstrate later in a minute. And so those are all our brushes. So if I had to recommend just one brush, I would recommend the buff brush. If you can get two brushes, then I would recommend the blush and bronzer brush and the detail brush. Either these two or these two. Now, if you only want a light everyday coverage and you never ever wear full coverage, then I will recommend you get the blend brush, because it's gonna always put a light layer on. So it just depends on what you like. And that's why when you fill out my Colormatch form, I'll ask you all those questions in the questionnaire. And that'll determine what brush I recommend. If you like a full coverage brush, I'm gonna recommend the buff brush. If you like a medium to full coverage, then I'll recommend the blush and bronzer brush. And if you like a natural finish, barely there, then I'll recommend this blend brush, okay? So I hope that makes sense, and if you have any questions on the brushes, let me know. They're all wonderful brushes. You just have to learn how to use them and learn how to pick up the product and apply the product in the correct technique, because that's what's going to make a difference in how your makeup looks. So there's 2 or 3 things that are going to make a difference in how your makeup is going to perform and look on your skin. And the first is color. You have to get the correct color. There's so many different colors like I showed you. So I'll show you in mine, for instance. When you get color matched, and while we're talking about that, let me tell you how to send me a correct selfie. You're going to stand back from a window. My window's right over there. You're going to stand back 3 feet from the window and pretend this is my camera. And I'm going to hold it out eye level, about arm's length or a little bit shorter. It's like 2 to 3 feet from my face. And you're not going to have any makeup on. You're going to show me your décolleté and your neck area, and no filters on the phone. And you're going to take 2 or 3 pictures, and whatever the best selfie from that where you can see all of your undertones and see your face in natural lighting, not out in the bright sunlight, not in your car, not under heavy makeup lights or in your bathroom that's going to cast shadows. Has to be natural light facing a window and eye level. Take the picture and then send me the best picture, and then I'll be able to recommend which shades for your skin. Okay, so whenever I look and pick out your shades, I'm not going to pick them out. You're not going to pick out shades like you normally do a traditional foundation, because remember, this is cream foundation. So you're not going to swatch it on there, because if you look at this and you hold it up to my face, can you see that hardly any of these shades look like they're going to work or they're going to match on my skin? And I'll swatch a few on my skin. And remember, these are the shades that I use. Okay, so see, there's one shade. See how light that is? There's another shade. It's another shade. And there's another shade. So if you were to look at all of these shades, you would think, oh my gosh, those shades are not going to work. Those are not the right shades for me. But guess what? They are. Those are the shades that work for my skin tone. It all depends on where you put them and how you blend them out. So that's why you can't just go by the way they look in the tin. Remember, I said they're 38% pigmented. So you have to put them on the correct way and in the certain places. So, say for instance, see, this is my camo shade. I'm not going to apply this shade this thick all over my whole face because that's not going to work. In the same way with this lighter shade right here, I'm not going to apply it all over because it's way too light, but I am going to apply it where I want to brighten and bring focus to my face. And then my main shade, which is this one right here, it matches my skin probably the most, but it's not necessarily going to be the one that matches my skin the most, but it's going to work when I blend it out, okay? Or if I have to build up layers to cover some imperfection. Fortunately, I'm lucky. I don't have a lot of imperfections. I do have some sun damage and age-related things on my face, but I don't have heavy melasma, which I did, though, in my younger years. But it since has faded with good skincare. I've faded it. But so now I'm just going to take that shade that I put my camo shade on my chin, and see, I'm going to blend it out, and you can see it hardly looks like it's on there, and you can see it blends in and it blurs. The other shades I'm just going to kind of wipe off because we didn't put that much of them on. But what your camo shade does is it's going to hide any darkness or imperfections that you have. I'm going to get a sip of water. Because if I use a concealer, which are typically lighter in shade, if you put a light shade on top of a dark shade, a dark spot, it's not going to hide that dark spot. It's just going to muddy it, and kind of, that dark spot is still going to be there, but it's not going to be hidden. If you use the correct camo shade to hide it, you have to look at that dark spot and see what's the darkest spot on your face that you want to hide. And so for me, you can see my nose is red. I have a lot of redness. That's my biggest problem. I have purple in the corner under my eyes. I have redness in between my brows, but it's mostly my nose, broken capillaries around my nose, and my chin area, which I've already put the camo shade on my chin area, so you can't really see it. But if you see, when I apply the camo shade, and I'm just taking a tiny bit on my finger, and I'm just tapping it in and applying it to those areas and building up that shade. Now my skin is the type that when you touch it, it gets redder, but when I leave it alone, it'll settle down. But I just want to show you, just by applying this camo shade that's darker than my skin and darker than that redness, it's going to help camouflage, and it's going to tone down those areas. And I only need a tiny bit. You start small with tiny bits, and then if you need to go back, you can go back, okay? So I've just applied those. And now I'm going to try to get in with I'm going to have to use my magnifying mirror though. I'm going to try to go in. We'll use this finger because my nails, they get in the way. And I'm going to try to go in and hide this purple. Now, everybody won't need to do this. I'm doing this troubleshooting, so those that do need it will see how this works. Because some of us have more issues. And I know it sounds like it's a lot, and oh, that's too much trouble. I'm not going to do that. Once you figure out where to put it, how to put it, and how much to put it, this goes on so fast. It seems like it's taking a lot longer, but it's not. Uh-oh, dogs are... I have the dog groomer coming to do the dogs, so I was trying to get through with this before she got here, but I didn't make it. But Rick's there. All right, so now I have broken capillaries, purple, lots of redness on my chin, lots of redness around my nose, dark circles in the corners. And you know, every day's not the same. Your skin's not the same every single day that you put your makeup on. You know, your imperfections. Some days I have good days and I don't need any of that. Other days, not so good, you know. So it just depends on any given day. And some days I don't want to go to all this and put all this on. I don't care. I'll just put my main 4 shades on and I'm out the door. So it just depends, but I want to show you the options that you have and how to use them in case you want to. And then you have them at your disposal, okay? So now once I get the shades on, I'm going to take the brush. This is the blush and bronze brush, and I'm just going to buff those in because I want them to be thin. Now, when this makeup was designed, it was made for 1 layer, 1 compact makeup to make it easy and to make it fast. Kara designed this because she was a working mom and her clients, that's what her clients wanted. And so that's how she came up with this system, which is really ingenious. So there's 1 layer, a very small layer, and I might need to take my blend brush and just kind of tap that out better because my finger's not fitting in there just good. Okay. And as you can see, it's already blurred out that redness and softened it to where now I look like I have a nice canvas to work with. And now I can go in and put my other shades on that you normally would put on if you didn't need the camo. Now, if it's still not covering, if I still see some that's going, you know, bleeding through, or it didn't cover enough, then just do the same thing. Tap a little bit in, tap a little bit on, another tiny sheer light layer until you get the coverage that you need, okay? And so then once you get that on, my mouth is so dry. Once you get your camo shade on, then you're ready to go into your regular 4-step system. Okay, so normally your 3D foundation consists of 2 highlights, a brightening, that's your brightening shade, your normal main shade, contour, and those 3 shades are your 3D foundation because contour and highlights all have coverage in them, okay? We're probably the only company that our contour gives you coverage. Most contours don't, which is kind of unique to this makeup. So that's why it's called 3D. You have 2 highlights and a contour for the 3D. That makes up your foundation. Okay, then your lip and cheek, that's the 4th one, and that's why you have 4 basic shades in this system. Okay, I hope that's making sense, and I'm not making it too complicated. I have a tendency to do that sometimes because I over-explain things, but that's just how I am. I try to teach you and help you understand it because then you will be able to do it. Okay, so now I'm going to take my blush and bronzer brush and I'm going to go into the next shade, which my next shade that I'm going to use today is amber. And I'm just going to lightly tap it in there, and you can see there's hardly any on the brush. This tin is getting low. And then I'm just going to tap it on. If you need to tap it on over there to hide that camo shade on top of it, then you just tap it on over on top of it, okay? Like I said, they designed this so you didn't have to have layers on top of layers. But even though we're putting layers on top of layers for this technique, this application technique, it's just still so light, it's not going to feel heavy, okay? So we just want that fuller coverage, but because that's a camo shade that's darker than my regular shade, I'm just tapping my regular shade on top of it. Now, I'm not swiping it and I'm not buffing it, because if I buff it, guess what? It's gonna buff in and mix in with that camo shade, and it'll be a different color. It's not gonna be the color, and it's gonna remove what I just camouflaged, and you don't want to camouflage it. So that's why you do this tapping. Sometimes they call it a stippling motion, okay? So just tap it in, tap it on. No swiping. Okay. And there's no correct order that you put one on before the other. It really doesn't matter as long as you get the everything put on there. You'll see. And I'm not putting a lot up around my forehead because I'm going to put my I'm going to put my brightening shade in the middle, and then across my hairline I'm going to put the contour. Okay? Now, I should have showed you my face in detail before I started applying, but I'll just explain it to you. If you look at your face and you don't have any makeup on, first you're going to look at the things that bother you the most, that stand out the most. Those are the imperfections you're going to hide with your camo shade. Okay? You're going to look at, next you're going to look at your lightest shades where you don't need very much coverage. And for me, that's my forehead. I don't have a lot of sun damage up there, thankfully. And it's basically, I used to have a lot of melasma around there when I was younger, but it's basically pretty, you know, it looks okay. So I don't have to do a lot of camouflaging or anything. I could just put my main shade up there, a brightening shade, a contour shade, and my forehead's good. And then right above my lip, it's real light. And then along my neck, it looks a little red right now. It's just because I'm on camera and you get a little nervous, so you get red. But normally along my jawline, right along this area, it's lighter. So I can put a lighter shade there or a brightening shade there to kind of counteract and blend in with my neck, okay? So I hope that makes sense. So kind of look at your face and analyze it that way, because that's how I'm going to analyze it when I do your color match. And that's where you're going to put your product. And as you can see, you're only going to use just a tiny, tiny bit. The number one mistake everybody makes is they put way too much on. But I'm going to show you how to fix that if that happens, because it happens to all of us in the beginning. But you'll learn how much to load on your brush, how much to put on, and you'll figure it out. And it's different because the creams are different consistency. Your contour is a little bit drier, different consistency, and then the other highlights are a little creamier. So depending on how you touch it with the brush, which brush you load it with, how you load it on the bristles, and how you apply it on your face, all of those, it sounds so complicated, but it really isn't. Once you figure that out and how to tap it and touch it and use it on your face, it'll go so much easier. And there's so many different variables. It depends on where you live, your climate. Sometimes if you live where it's cool and colder, the tints will get harder, and so you can put them on your face and let them warm up while you're doing the other section, and then go back and blend them, and they'll blend much easier. If you live in a warm climate where I live in Florida, mine are just awesome. They're nice and creamy. Don't ever leave them in the heat where it's hot, because they will melt, okay? So now that I have all of that, those two shades on, my camo shade and my main shade, now I'm gonna go in with my brightening shade. And I like to use the end of my detail brush. So I'm gonna dip it into my brightening shade just a tad. I've been using this brush, I should have cleaned it because it has 2 or 3 other shades on it. And I'm just gonna go into the corner. I'm gonna put it on a little heavier because it's harder to see. This one is Aura, and it matches my skin pretty close. It is brighter though, and I'm just going in on top of where I put that camo shade to disguise the purple, and then on the outside corner. I'm not going underneath the whole eyelid, the whole eye. And then I'll go back in a minute and then we'll blend that together. We'll blend it. So I'm just going in the corner. My eye is my most trouble spot, especially this eye. This bag has a deeper divot in it than this side, and this side droops more than this side, and this eye droops more. I had Bell's palsy years ago, okay? So now I'm just going to lightly, they're going by, everybody's going by with in their golf cart. It's happy hour. So our subdivision, they ride their golf carts in the happy hour and they socialize together. So cool. But anyway, so take and then just tap that and brush it over. If you use the camo shade there, don't swipe it. If you swipe it, then you're going to swipe your camo shade away. Okay, so remember, just tap. A lot of people use their finger, so don't be afraid to use your fingers. Just, I have a hard time getting in there with my fingernails. Okay, so I like to use this brush. Just tap, but don't blend it too much because then you're going to blend it all away and erase all of that camouflage that you did. Okay, so then now I'm going to go down the center of my forehead just to give me some brightness. Then I'm going to go down the center of my nose. Oops, kind of got a little bit more than center, but that's okay because we're going to blend. You can't mess this makeup up. It's so fixable, blendable. Okay, just a little bit on my chin because that's one of my trouble spots, and it's like around my eyes. I don't want too much of the brightening light shade there because light shades will show up your texture, and that's where you want to be careful when you put your brightening shades on. Okay, all right, so then next we're ready to do our contour. Like I said, sometimes I start with my contour and then I do my camo shade, but most of the time I do my camo shade first and then go in with the other shades. All right, so I'm gonna take the side of this brush, and you can see it's wide and flat. And I'm just gonna take the edge of the brush and tap it in like that, okay? And load just a little bit on the brush. And then I'm gonna just tap it on my cheekbone. If you don't know where to tap it, look at the top of your ear and come down to your eye, around the outside of your eye. Never go in past the iris. And it's generally 2 to 3 fingers depending on how wide your face is. Remember, everybody's face is different. It's your own unique, beautiful you. Okay, so then I'm gonna take, and I'm just gonna go, this is one of my lighter contours. It's ash. I should have picked a darker ones just so it would show up better on camera. But I mean, it works great for me, but it doesn't show up as nice on the camera. But hopefully you'll get the gist of it. And be sure you put it up in the hairline. This brush works great. Some people go wider. It depends on how wide your hairline is. I have a very short, I only have a 3-finger forehead. So most people have 4 to 5. So what this does is it helps it appear smaller, and it just gives your face dimension, which I don't need it to look smaller, but I want to add that dimension. And so that's why I want my cheekbones to pop, because as you get older, we lose a lot of that definition in our face. And so I definitely want to put it on my jawline, my cheekbone, because I have a weaker jawline now that I'm older. I'm 67. Can't believe it, but I am. And then you're just going to take the brush and whatever's left on the brush, and you're going to fan it down. Okay? And then just push this up, or you can come down if you have a wider forehead. Okay, and then go along that jawline. What I'm doing is straighten that line out. Oops, there goes thunder. Those golf carters need to make it home or they're gonna get soaked. This is the time it storms here in Florida. All right, so now just look at the difference in this face at the dimension. My jaw is more defined and my neck matches my face and my neck, and then I have some definition around my forehead that I didn't have before. And so look at this side. See, you have normal shadows anyway. Can you see that shadow where this cheekbone is? And a little bit of shadow up there, not much. And then you have a shadow on your jaw. Even though my jaw is weak because of gravity and everything's drooping down, it's not as sharp as it once was when I was younger. But you can kind of create a line there and create an illusion that it is just by adding contour. So all we're doing is bringing emphasis to shadows that are already there. You have all these shades already on your face. You're just emphasizing them to bring out the features, make them look so pretty. And when I'm not talking and explaining how to do this, I can get my makeup on in 5 to 6 minutes, my foundation. Now my eyes and my eyebrows always take the longest. So now I've brushed that down. Now I'm gonna go back and brush up on the sides of my nose and apply a little bit of contour there. If you really want a snatched contour on your nose, take your ring finger and dip it in your contour, rub those two together and go down the sides of your nose like this. And some people use a different, my nose will get red because I'm touching it, but it'll settle down in a minute. And then now we'll blend that brightening shade in. Blend this in just by tapping it. That's the neat thing about creams. If it gets too light, if it looks too light or not blended, you just tap it. Creams are just so nice because they're like a second skin. And they're just so flattering and the most skin-like without looking heavy. Now, when you first put all this on, it looks heavy. That's why we're blending it now. And then I'm going to talk to you about the Perfector sponge. If you like a skin-like finish, you have to use the Perfector. And our Perfector sponge is different than others on the market. I'm not saying that just to get you to buy it. It's hot in here under all these lights. But let me show you. Here's our Perfector sponge. And all Perfector sponges do this, not just ours. Here's one that's clean. Number one, it's brand new, it hasn't been used, and it's right out of the package and it's dry. It hasn't been wet. And here's one that I wet before I started using, before I even started doing this makeup. Because the first thing I always do is I wet it under the water, let it completely soak up the water, and then I squeeze it out and squeeze it out and squeeze it out in my hand. And then I take a paper towel and I squeeze it out again in the paper towel. And then I usually come in here and then I sit with the paper towel and I squeeze it and squeeze it and squeeze it again until there's nothing left in it. I mean, nothing. And then I sit it over here on my little egg cup. It's just an old antique egg cup. And I just sit it on there and it's kind of like air drying while I'm putting my makeup on. And so what you do is, because if you take this dry sponge and you put it on your skin, it's gonna pick up some of the makeup. See, but it's not gonna pick up very much. Which you don't want it to pick up very much, but you do want it to pick up any excess that you might have where you crease. So for me, that's around my nose, around my mouth, and under my eyes. So what I want to do is I want to take this sponge, and it's only going to feel cool to the touch. I mean, it almost feels dry. It's just nice and soft and bouncy. And I'm just going to touch it to those areas and push in this makeup, because cream makeups don't sink down into your skin. They don't clog your pores like a lot of people think they will. Ours don't. And I'm just pushing it in and setting it all over, and then especially where I think I might crease, I'm going to press into that, okay? And what it's going to do, you can see it didn't pick up very much, but it picked up enough to where if I move in, it's not going to crease in those spots. When you move, those spots move, because when you talk, when you smile, everything, all those areas of your face, you know, move. So I don't want it to get in my 11s. I don't want it to sit in my under eyes or around my nose or my mouth, in those areas that we have a tendency to crinkle the most, okay? So that's the purpose of this perfector sponge, and I absolutely love it. It's awesome. Now, another thing you can do with it is you can set it with Stay Spray, but you have to be careful and not get too much Stay Spray on there. So what I do is I only spray it on there a little bit, and then I roll the whole thing but in between my hands like this and distribute it evenly. And it takes a little bit to get the right amount. You'll know the right amount, because if you touch it and it pulls your makeup off in that spot, then it's too wet. So you don't want it too wet. You want it just wet enough. It's not even wet. You want it just damp enough to where it's swollen up, it feels cool to the touch, and it's soft and bouncy. Okay, you don't want it to pull off the makeup. You just want it to tap the makeup and give you that skin-like finish. So see how beautiful that is? And that's my foundation. That's my 3D foundation. That's the two camo shades. One camo shade, a brightening shade, a main shade. So 3 highlights. That's the ticket, is your highlights for your foundation and your contour. So I used 4 shades. Okay, so then now I'm going to go in and I'm going to put my blush on. And our blushes are called Lip and Cheek, and you can use them in any combination by themselves, mix them with others. We have tons, tons. I have 2 or 3 compacts of them, but my biggest palette that has the majority of them is this palette that has all of our creams, Lip and Cheeks. And you can see there's just so many beautiful shades. Some of them are different formulas. Some of them are semi-matte, and some of them are matte, and some of them are satin, and some of them are gloss. So it just depends. See, like, look at this shade here, Black Cherry, how deep dark it looks in the tin, this one right here. But when you put it on, it shears out really pretty. It's one of our #1 cool shades if you like it, and it looks so pretty on your cheeks and your lips. And then we have matte shades. One of my favorites is Frenchie, and Frenchie works really well for, let me see, I don't have it in this, nope, I don't have it in this palette. Frenchie works awesome for an under eye concealer. This is Frenchie, but it's very matte. Now, I like it on my cheeks, but I don't like it on my lips. See how that is? It's a pretty coral, and it's so pretty on your cheeks. And that's probably my #1 that I wear the most. But I don't really like it on my lips unless I layer a gloss over the top of it, or use it with a lip liner to help give it a little bit more color, warm color. But it's so pretty. So they're all different. You'll be fooled. You can't look at what they look like online, or even what they look like in the tin when you're looking at them. Our highlights, or our Lip and Cheeks. These are some of the smaller shades of Lip and Cheeks that I put in this palette, just because we had a special, I think it was for a holiday edition or something, I don't remember, and you could get them all. in the smaller editions. Well, you know, I had to have them all in the smaller edition because these are easier to carry. And so I could put 2 in the place of just 1 in my tin and have a little bit more variety. So that's kind of cool. So just remember that when you're picking out shades, that you can't go by the way they look in the tin. So a lot of times the eyeshadows and the blushes and lip and cheeks that I put on are depending on what I'm wearing. And so I still have this on today from my walk this morning. So I'm just kind of matched it. So today I'm going to use Venice, which look how bright and pigmented that looks in the tin. But see, look at it when, and it's a nice semi-gloss. It's a gloss, so it's going to look so pretty on my cheek. And let me show you what it looks like on. And you can shear it out or put it on as thick as you want. But it's just such a pretty semi-gloss shade. And you can put it on with your brush, just a tat. See, look at that. That's all you're going to use. Apply it to the top of your cheek. See, look how pigmented. And then look how pretty that is. And then just kind of buff it in. And it gives a sheen. I just love the semi-glosses for your cheeks too, because it gives a nice sheen. You don't even have to use an illuminator because it gives that pretty sheen. And then for your lips, just tap a little bit on with your finger, or you can use a brush. I like the multitasker brush because it has a flat paddle, which works real well for putting on your lips on one end, and then the other end is a really fine pointed, let me find, there it is. See how it has that fine tip that works really good for putting on lipstick or for packing on eyeshadow or packing on a concealer. And you can just do that Cupid's bow. And look how pretty and soft that shade is. I just love this. I just love all of our lip and cheeks. I just love all of this makeup. It's just the best makeup I have ever used. And then you could take this tip and you could use it, you could dip it into your contour, which you would normally do this first. And you could line your lips either with the same shade, or I like to use on my bottom lip a contour just to give it some shadow. Okay, and then sometimes that'll change the whole look depending on which contour you use. And you can build it up, put it on as thick and heavy as you want. You can use it with another lip and cheek on top of it and create a whole new lip and cheek from it. All right, then next let me show you how to use the illuminator and the Bella bronzer. So here's our Bella bronzer, and I like to use Angel Illuminator with mine, and I'm going to take the big part of my blush and bronzer brush, and I'm tapping it into both of them at the same time. And then I'm just going to apply it on the high points of my face where the sun normally would hit. Definitely on my neck. And if you're one of those ladies that has a lighter neck or décolleté, then the rest, this is going to help bridge the gap. And here I can swirl and do everything because I didn't put any camo shade on there that I'm going to blend away. And then on my cheek, I'm just tapping it all over to blend. Don't swirl, just tap, remember. It depends on the effect that you want. It depends on if you have camo shades underneath, okay? And that way I got illuminator, bronzer, all on at the same time. Isn't that pretty? And then now you're gonna take your powder brush and you're gonna dip it into your powder. You can use a loose powder. We have a Vanilla Dust pressed powder that's finely milled, and I'm just gonna tap it in. You can either use the loose, fluffy end, or you can use the tightly packed end. I'm gonna use the loose end because I'm gonna use the least amount as possible, and I'm only gonna tap it in my areas I don't want to crease, or where I do crease, or have a tendency to crease. And then I'm just gonna tap it in those areas. I'm not gonna tap it all over my whole face because I kind of like the dewy finish. I think it makes you look more youthful. You know how when you see children who come in from playing outside and they just have that sheen and that natural luminosity to their skin because they're young and their skin is beautiful. There's no sun damage or anything on it yet. Well, that's how it looks, and that's what's trending for the last few years, is that beautiful dewy finish. And I think it just looks prettier on us more mature ladies. But if you're one of those ladies who likes to have all matte finish, then you could put the powder on all over. Just be really careful and use a finely milled loose powder. A good one is Coty Airspun. People have used it for years. Also, Laura Mercier is another one. I have tons of them. I've tried them all and used them all on my clients. But at the end of your application, let me find the blend brush. Take this big fluffy brush and knock off any excess. Don't let it sit on there and settle in those fine lines, wrinkles, and pores. I have large pores because I have oily skin. So you want to be sure you knock all that off. So I hope these tips, some of these tips helped you on the application and explained a little bit about how this 3D foundation works and how these products perform on your skin. If you need any help with color correcting or need a color match, fill out my questionnaire that I'll link, or shoot me a message. I'm more than glad to help you. That's what I'm here for. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. I'll be glad to share my knowledge with you. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.